Hi, this is Ask Dr. Ben. The next update is a paper that was actually sent in by Jane from Texas. And so, hello, Jane. Asking about this particular paper. And so this is a kind of a neat one. It's out in medRxiv, so it's not fully published yet, but it looks, fairly sound as far as I can tell these things. Obviously not a medical doctor, but it's worth talking about. So it's a study on infectivity of asymptomatic SARS-CoV-2 carriers, which means people that have the virus but don't have symptoms from the virus. And I guess the only misleading part there is the S on the end of carriers, because this is a study of one carrier. So there was a person that got SARS by association with somebody else. They were picked up in sort of a screen, and they were positive but never developed symptoms. And they were kept in hospital in isolation. And they then went in and checked all the people around that person in the hospital ward and all of the contacts. And it ended up being something over 400, I think like 454. Let's see if we can pick out the number. 455, sorry, off by one. Yeah. Contacts who were all potentially exposed to this asymptomatic carrier. And from these contacts, you have a lot of people with a lot of sort of worrying diseases that sound a bit like COVID. They only properly, so they checked some of these people by a sort of a chest, it's called a CT scan, and they didn't report anything that really screamed out that this is COVID. But a lot of those people they didn't test. And so what they could have done afterward to make it a little bit better, and I don't know, maybe the reviewers will say, hey, go back and do this. They could have done an antibody test on the people who had been exposed to see whether or not they could have been infected. So they didn't detect any active infections caused by this asymptomatic carrier, which is good. That's very good, but it's also just one person, and they maybe didn't do the most sensitive kind of test. They did do the it's either nose or throat, I forget, test where they put the sort of Q-tip in there and swab around on the I think it was 35, there we go, patients that were in the hospital, and all of those came back as virus negative. I think the rest of them, they were just talking to them and saying, did you have any symptoms, or can we look at your insides and see if you might have some SARS-like damage. So this is a positive thing. It shows that in one case a person didn't transmit it, even though they potentially could have. Now, we don't know, they don't look at length of time that the asymptomatic carrier of SARS was in contact with these people. The time probably matters. The number of exposures probably matter. But in the study, it also included some of their family members. And so presumably those would have higher contact times, although there are people that kind of have families but mostly live on their own too. So it's hard to say. So there we go. Interesting study. Waiting to see more. And it's good. These are 455 people that could have caught COVID and didn't, and it's nice when something like that happens, when people avoid this disease, because it's no good for anybody. So there we go. Fantastic. And thank you very much. This was a Dr. Ben update.